Wanted to do a video on the only non-CT70 Z50 ST90 monkey bike, small Honda bike that I currently own. And that is my old 1989 Gsxr 1100 that you can see is perfect. I bought this bike originally back in '96 when I was 18 years old. Was trying to get in the racing scene, road racing scene, and was looking for a bike and was not in the market for one of these. But I've always been a Suzuki fan my whole life, especially Gsxrs, and came across it. It was cheap as nails back then. I mean, it was, I think I paid $1,500 for it in this condition back in '96. I couldn't pass it up. I just thought that was such a screaming deal. It was my first big bore bike. Up to this point, I started riding sport bikes at 14, being from North Dakota originally. So I had an Interceptor 250, a little Virago 250, FZR 600, FZ 600, and sold all of them when I moved to Utah and got this thing. Came across it, screaming deal, bought it, and kept it for probably not even a year, probably close to a year. It was just ridiculously fast. The torque on it, when you get these big bore bikes, these old Gsxrs, I mean, the things are just awesome. I mean, this thing dynoed, I remember I put on the dyno, it dynoed at 127 rear wheel horsepower with almost 90 foot-pounds of torque. I think it has when I bought it, it had like 21,000 miles. I think it has 32,837. The motor's still golden on it. In Utah, these 1100s don't survive, these old oil-cooled ones. They get mainly turned into sandrails and midget racing car engines, because these things are just great. I mean, they're bulletproof. You can get tons of power out of them, etc. So I had this 18, got my racing license on this very bike. I remember when I went and took my track certification and all that stuff, I was against Ducati 916s and Gsxr 750s and this and that, and I managed to cut the fastest lap of everybody who was trying to get their racing license on this old Gsxr 1100. The thing was heavy as hell, and to be honest with you, as far as track goes, it sucked. I mean, basically the power plant's what saved my ass. It was just a freight train motor. I mean, the thing would just go. But as far as making corner entries, mid-corner, trying to make it hold a line through a corner, it was hard work. In fact, a lot of times, or corner exit, I couldn't make the corner. I'd actually run wide, hit the rumble strips, or even hit the grass a couple times. But I could manage to fight it and get a good lap time, and I got my racing license on it. But back then, they had requirements where you couldn't race bigger than the 750 unless you had an expert license. So I ended up selling it to ended up being my future brother-in-law. Made some money and regretted selling it ever since, and because I love the Gsxrs. In fact, my goal would be to have a collection of every model they made, 750, 1100, and 600. And he kept it for years, kept it ever since. Got it like 2 years ago, so he had it for like 15, 16 years. He has a Gsxr 1000, and he hasn't ridden this thing forever. Probably about 10 years he hasn't ridden this bike, or right around there, 8 to 10 years. And pretty much asked me if I wanted it back. So I said, yeah, and I have it. So it pretty much stays in the corner of my garage. It's the only bike I really keep as far as big bikes. I sold my Aprilia last year, so that's gone. And just have this and all my CTs and Z50s and that's pretty much it. I don't ride it. I don't plan on riding it. it's the most uncomfortable bike you'll ever ride. I mean, they're bad. The old Gsxrs are bad. But yeah, I'm keep it. Maybe someday I will. I don't know. Right now, I just want to keep. I'll never sell the thing. It's one of those things, and I've owned, geez, FZ 600, FZR 600, this bike, ZX7, Gsxr 750, Gsxr 1000, CBR 929, RR, Aprilia RSV, and this. I think that's all the bikes I've owned. You know, big bikes, that is. And yeah, so I'm going to hang on to it and keep it. But yeah, here it is. Look at it. Beautiful. Beautiful. All the red accents you see in the red wheels and grips. It didn't have that when I bought it. My brother-in-law, he pulled the wheels off and had them painted and powder coated the fuel in the cap, put the red grips on and a red windshield. And I don't know. It looks good, though. And that's it. 89 Gsxr 1100.